Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. A question that I always get in the shop and just talking to people on Instagram or YouTube or wherever, people are always like, man, I hate that the prices of records are so high now. With the rising prices in materials, new records are super high. And with inflation, and everybody just kind of seems to find out that records are worth more now. Everybody seems to think all their records are worth a ton, so it's hard to get a good deal when you're out and about, whether you're going to yard sales or thrift stores or whatever. And so I just kind of want to make a video of some of the ways that I have found to get good records for cheap. Over the years, I have bought over a million records in my lifetime for sure. Right now I own a record store and I buy 1,000 to 2,000 records a week. And I've been on the hunt looking for records since I was 10 years old. So many times when I was young, I would save up my pennies and go out looking for records just relentlessly. So these are some of the secrets that I have found over the years to help me get some records on the cheap. Also, you might be thinking, why would you be giving out your secrets like this? A lot of people, they don't want to give out their secrets or whatever, and I actually don't mind. Because I'm under the belief that when you win, everybody wins, especially like record collectors. Like when you find a record that you really like out in the wild and you get it cheap, that doesn't take from me. That fuels everyone's desire and their excitement over records, and so that just keeps people in it longer. It gives you more enjoyment, and my whole goal with YouTube is just keeping people excited about records, giving people knowledge. Helping inform people, helping that vinyl fire continue to burn inside you. That is what I like doing. And so that is why I'm sharing these secrets with you today. So if you haven't already and you don't mind, please hit that subscribe button. That would help me out a lot. Hit the like button, hit me with a comment, turn your post notifications on. Anything you can do to interact, that just kind of keeps the community thriving, and I really would appreciate it. It's kind of why I do these videos, to stay in contact with you guys. Also, I own a record store in Matthews, North Carolina. It's called Noble Records, and we are always buying big collections, recommending albums, things like that. So follow us on Instagram at Noble Records so you can keep in contact with us there as well. So first things first, kind of the first point that everything else hinges on is your knowledge is key. A lot of times people will say, "Well, what am I looking for when I'm out in thrift stores?" I mean, that's something that you really gotta figure out on your own. There's so many different genres, so many different types of music, and when I'm out looking, basically what I'm looking for and what piques my interest hinges on what I know. And so I cringe at the thought of how many records that when I was a kid, I didn't know nothing about jazz. I didn't know much about blues. When I was a kid, I was looking for Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. If it wasn't that, I cringe at knowing how many crazy records I probably flipped past, not knowing what they were when I was young. And so what you kind of have to do is kind of go through and do as much research as you can on the genres of music that you're after. Discogs.com is a great resource for that. And then just like forums, whatever you can. And within that process, a huge help to you is learning labels. Now, and I say this because a lot of times people will, when they're starting out, they'll go into a thrift store or a Goodwill or whatever, and they'll go through all the records and they'll pick the ones out that look interesting, and then they'll look them all up on Discogs, which is fine. You can do that, and that kind of helps you know what's worth money, what's not, what you like. Sometimes you find a record and you don't know you're going to like it, so you can look it up and it'll kind of tell you what genre it is and all that stuff. And so that Discogs is a very good help to you. But I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a situation to where I have not had cell phone service, or at least enough cell phone service to look anything up on Discogs, or the person I'm buying records from is right there. So me pulling up my phone and looking things up on Discogs, you can't really do that. I mean, it's just disrespectful. And so a lot of times that's not an option, and you have to go off of what you know. And so use that when you can, but also get to the point to where you're not reliant on that completely, and you're able to do, look for things independently as well. Because what you know is going to make you faster than everybody else. It's going to make you you're going to be able to find things better that are flying under everybody else's radar. So that's the most important thing, is that your knowledge is key. You've got to learn. There's no secret. There's no workaround to knowledge. You've got to have knowledge. The next one is go places nobody else will go. Another huge key to some of my best digs has been going somewhere that nobody else wants to be. The first one that comes to mind is a few years ago. Found a buddy of mine told me about a guy that had a attic full of records. My first thought was your first thought. Yeah, aren't they hot? Aren't they getting warped? Whatever. And he said, no, they're all right, but you should come look. I've been in there. I've dug through everything, and if you want to come look, you can. So I said, yeah, I'll go look. And I was hesitant because attic, and it was like August, and August in North Carolina is rough. And so, then he calls me back. He said, I got bad news. Probably 8 to 10 guys have been in there digging for the past few months. There's nothing left. They've taken all the good stuff. And I sat and thought, well, shoot, I don't want to waste my time going over here, but I will. Just something in me told me, just go look. You gotta go look. And I go in, start flipping through the records, and first record I pull is a really rare psych record I've been looking for forever. And I was like, holy moly, my mind was blown that somebody could have seen this and not bought it. And as I went through, it was one of my best honey holes ever. I've been 7 or 8 times to the same place, and I've picked about everything that I can out of there. But found some of the best records in my collection there, and it was just because a lot of the people that had gone in there, they were just looking for really common stuff that, they didn't know a lot of the obscure stuff. There was a ton of punk, a ton of psych, foreign stuff. There were 45s. There was all kinds of like soundtracks and reggae and all kinds of crazy stuff in there. And so, although it was kind of my instinct was telling me, it's an attic. So as I went up there, the part of the attic that most of them were in was air conditioned. So it was climate controlled. It wasn't really an attic. It was kind of a loft. And there was an attic that did have records in it, and they were really hot. And I still got some from there that weren't, they weren't warped or anything. So, anyways, all that to say, go places nobody else will go. I cannot tell you how many times that I have gone places that I should not even probably be in. I've, been in storage units to where I open the door and I'm like, man, these have been stored terribly, but I gotta look. And deep in the middle, I'll find something crazy. And so, a lot of times, you can find really good, cheap stuff if you are willing to go places a lot of other people aren't going. And part of that also is being creative about where you look for records. That's as far as I'll go with that. Just be creative and think, where would records be that people wouldn't normally go to look for them? And you got to find those places in your area where you can find things like that. Another one is to buy in bulk. A lot of times, even if you go in yard sales, or you're going in even in record stores, sometimes you get a deal buying in bulk. You get a good deal on a lot of things now. Like for instance, a lot of times I'll go to a yard sale or something like that, and there'll be a box full of records, and they'll be $5 each or whatever, and I say, hey, how much for all of them? And I'll get them all in bulk. So then, even if you do get records that you don't want, you can trade them to people or trade them in a record store or whatever, and get credit back to when you can buy records that you really do want. So buying in bulk is a good way to shave some money off of some records that might be more expensive. Another big one that has helped me out over the years, and maybe not getting records for really cheap, but being able to trade for records that you want and get a good deal on them to where you're not paying through the nose for stuff, is making a lot of friends. Like making friends online or in person, talking to people. Even if you're going to a record store. Like, I think the greatest thing about a local record store or brick and mortar shop is the community aspect of it, to where people are able to talk and get to know each other and get to know each other's likes and stuff. And I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting at my desk at the shop and I'm seeing people, like, I know this guy and I know that guy, but they don't know each other, and they get to talking and they get to making friends, and then they're buddies, and then they look out for each other, and I love that. I love having a watering hole for that in my area, and being able to see that and be a part of it. It's huge. I love it. So when you're out at a record store or a record show or whatever, just don't see the people around you as competition. See them as friends and resources. They have knowledge you don't have. You have knowledge they don't have. And if you have opposing tastes, you can look out for each other and trade and swap and all that stuff. So making friends is a huge part of being able to get records that you want. But more importantly than getting the records, it's making the friend, and it's an endless resource for you, and it makes record collecting more enjoyable, in my opinion. Next one is being relentlessly consistent. I have a very good friend of mine that he finds the craziest stuff at yard sales, flea markets, thrift stores, consignment shops, all those places, because he hits every single place that he can on a regular basis. I'll see him, I'll bump into him at Goodwill all the time. There's a few Goodwills that I hit on a regular basis, and I never find much. But last week I found James Brown Payback and a Nina Simone record and a couple other really cool funk records at this Goodwill that I go to a couple times a week just because it's in my route, and I'll jump out of the car and go, and I bump into him all the time. But he also comes in the shop all the time. But he is really consistent. He travels for work, and so he's always going to all these different places. But you can't forget that you can get great deals at record stores. A lot of record stores in their dollar bins or budget bins or whatever. There was a time that this friend of mine, found a record in the dollar bin and sold it for over $3,000 on eBay. I could not believe it. And it was just because he knew what he was looking for. He saw something, he knew it was worth some money, and it was in a dollar bin. It didn't look like it was worth anything, but he has done so much research and so even though and I hate to talk about the money value of records, but if you find a record that you can sell and make money, that money goes into the PayPal account, and that becomes what we call monopoly money. It's not real money, and you can just buy records with it. I'm joking, of course, but if you can get some money out of a record, then you can buy some records that you really want, if that's not what you want. So anyways, that's something that a lot of record collectors do. Me and my friends always joke about, like, yeah, that's PayPal money, that's not real money, but that's a big one, is being very consistent. Because if you go to a couple Goodwills or go to some thrift stores or yard sales and you strike out and you say, this is not worth it, I'm giving up, then you're not going to find anything. That's just going to be it, and you're going to chalk it up as a loss. But you got to hit so many before you hit strike gold. But you do strike gold. The stuff is out there. And a lot of times I'll go into antique malls and antique booths and consignment shops, and you'll be flipping through records, and it'll be like a Bruce Springsteen album for $50, or like a Barry Manilow album for $30, and you're like, man, these prices are nuts. And then I'll find some like really rare record that's worth a couple $100, and it'll be $1, because people that are pricing these things, they think that the Elvis and the Beatles and all this stuff is worth a ton of money, and so they'll price those up really big. But the stuff that's kind of obscure that they don't really know, they'll just put $1 on it, and so it's going to every place that might have a record, and then you go to those places, and then but the consistency, doing it over and over again, that really strengthens your knowledge. And it not only gives you knowledge of what records to look for, but it gives you knowledge of where you might be able to find records in your area as well. Next one is letting all your friends, and this might seem obvious, but letting all your friends and family know that you're looking. So, my dad, he doesn't know anything about records. He doesn't like records. He's not into it at all. Zero. And when he's out at yard sales, sometimes he'll call me and say, hey, Dylan, there's this spot over here. They got a ton of records. You got to get over here. And then he'll look out for me, and or my mom will, or friends will, or whatever. So let people around you know, hey, if you see any records, let me know. You bring it up in conversation, and then let them know to be on the lookout. And last and definitely not least, and you can discount me all you want on this one. You might think I'm a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but it's not. I mean to tell you that there is a thing called record karma, and it is real. Basically, if you are good to people, then I'm telling you, the good comes back to you. Being nice to people, helping people out, being kind to people, especially in record stores, and helping people out. If somebody's really looking for an album and you got two of them, sell it to them for cheap or give it to them. And a lot of times that stuff, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I will give a record to somebody and say, this is a really great record, you need to have this. And then the next day I find something like mind blowing that I'm like, I'm telling you, what goes around comes around. And record karma is a real thing. So if you're in this community and you're really nice to people and you're kind, I'm telling you, people will look out for you and people will help you. And not to mention, like, there's just something to that. What goes around comes around. It's very true. And so just be good to people, be kind. And I'm telling you, I know a lot of stingy record collectors, and they pay through the nose for their stuff, and they're fine. They're happy to do that. But I know a lot of really nice record collectors, and they get better stuff for cheaper. So just keep that in mind. Be good to people. And I tell you what, follow us on Instagram and subscribe to us. I'm joking, but do hit the subscribe button. But thank y'all for watching this video. Appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something from it, and this will help you in your record finding journeys. We will see you next time.